too.
Have you ever wondered what makes bodies tick? Are you creating the sexual reality you desire and require? Would you like to know more about what else is possible with bodies? What if your fantasies are not as strange as you thought they were? What if you could learn to be kinder to your body and kinder to others' bodies? Would you like to create confidence in the bedroom and beyond? How has your sex life or lack of it affected other areas of your life? Have you lost your mojo and wondered where to find it? Everyone has the potency to be a sexual superhero. Get ready to listen, sense, and play with the sexualness that is you. Now, here is the host of The Pleasure Zone, Body Whisperer, Milica Jelenic.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Pleasure Zone. I'm your host, Milica Jelenic, and tonight we have a most unusual topic. And for those of you who hear the title, just know right off the bat that if we're not intending to talk about bestiality. The show is called How to Pleasure a Unicorn. If it does go there, it goes there, but that's not really what we set it up for. But you never know on this show. You just never know where it goes. And I really wanted to say bestiality on the show because I never have yet. After a year and a half, I have yet to have talked about that. So there you go. So, for anybody listening who would like to talk about that on a further show, please let me know. Before we get too started, we're already getting a little started. For those of you who are totally new to this show, sometimes we talk about very off-the-wall things on this program. I encourage you to allow your children to listen. And, it's a totally different way to get an education about your bodies and pleasure. So yes, if you would like your children to listen, go ahead. We do use swear words on occasion. So just have that awareness. And if you're not okay with that, just know this show often contains swearing, whatever that means. So for those of you who are listening going like, what do you have this show for? And why do you think you qualify? I don't actually think I qualify. I just really like talking about pleasure and bodies. So that's why I chose it. One of my talents, abilities, skills, or whatever, is to work with bodies, and I do a lot of body work. It's actually called the mitzvah technique. It's a type of somatic body work that aligns the spine through movement, and I've been studying that for a number of years, along with some energy work of various kinds for the last 20 years. So I get to play with bodies and energy work in many different ways, and one of my favorite things to do with bodies is to do body processes from Access Consciousness along with Access Bars. And my guest today is Cory Michelle, who is a certified facilitator of Access Consciousness, and she's also a bars facilitator, and she knows the magic of the bars as well. And most of you who listen to this know that most of my guests, not all of them, are Access facilitators. Most of them are certified facilitators from Access. Some of them are not, but we like to explore things beyond the normal of this reality. And so who better to have on the show than Cory Michelle? And if any of you have ever listened to her and Catherine McIntosh's show on this channel, you might actually get how offbeat these conversations be. And also, if any of you are on Facebook and you've been following Cory, you might have noticed that she actually started a massive movement that, within a month, I think it was, I was one of your first 300 people to sign up in the possible experiment. And it went from overnight, it went to 5,000 people in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or something, or 7,000 within 2 months. I was like, damn, that's awesome. And people are going mental on there. So if you are on Facebook, join Crazy Possible Experiment and get some really, really cool tools on there. And Cory's got great classes that she posts on there as well for people. So, aside from being a certified facilitator, Cory also has a few things, and although she didn't give me her bio, I had to sneak around and find information about her, so I did that.
Oopsie.
And if you go on her website, corymichelle.us, you'll find out that she has this very official bio, and then you'll find out that she has her Cory's unofficial bio by the real Cory Michelle. which is a really great bio, and I love it. I laughed because I actually did the same on one of my sites. I was like, this is the technical, but now I really want to tell you about me. So
Yeah.
she's a bona fide miracle worker. She can, like, being just around her, you can actually see that your life will change. And I've watched people that have gone through your programs and like different programs that you have set up for business and stuff, Cory, and I've watched their lives expand. So I know what you create. And actually, a few years ago, you were on a summit. It was with Milica, and it was the first time I'd heard you. I was on that summit, and I remember listening to you on the way to an ESB in Vancouver, and I was like, you were hanging out with me on the airplane. So it's very cool.
That's so cool.
So yeah,
so cool.
So
that's awesome
yeah,
to hear. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was fun. So tonight we're going to be chatting about so many things. So the title, and if you looked on the show, the program listing, and you were wondering, like, what does this mean? And I threw a lot of questions into this. Cory came up with the title of How to Pleasure a Unicorn. I was like, hell yeah, we're doing that. So these were like, I really wondered, like, how do you know if you are a unicorn, for one? And is pleasuring a unicorn different than pleasuring another species? And what if you are a unicorn and require something totally different for pleasure and didn't know it? And if you could actually start to, like, receive the pleasure that a unicorn could have, what else is possible? So for those people who have never, like, followed the unicorn movement, and Cory is actually like a bona fide unicorn expert. For those of you who haven't followed the movement, you might want to listen to what we're actually talking about, because as much as this sounds like fairies and, you know, like fairy dust coming out of your butt and stuff, but it's actually not that. It's actually even funnier than that and better than that and more expansive than that. So, Cory, now that I've just, like, gone rambling for 7 minutes, I would like to introduce you to everybody, because they've been hearing your giggle in the background.
Totally. I'm so happy to be here.
Awesome. So,
I love it. Bona fide unicorn expert. Like,
that's right.
That's hilarious to me. I love it. Well, it's so funny because I started the Crazy Possible experiment as just kind of an idea I'd had, and it just kind of clicked in. This week is week number 13, so 12 weeks ago. And like, so 3 months now, and it's just gone like wildfire. And what was so interesting is that the whole unicorn thing, I've been talking about being like calling myself a unicorn trainer for like a year and a half. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have the guts to. Like, I didn't have the guts to just come clean and be like, I feel like a unicorn trainer. And I feel like all the people that come to my classes and that are around me and that choose to be on my email list, and, you know, a lot of the Access Consciousness folks, were just like these magical beings that have been just elusive, right? We've been sort of hiding out and sort of pretending like we're donkeys or something, but really we're these magical unicorns. And the more and more I'm around, you know, these people who believe in possibility and who know that something else is possible for themselves and for their lives, but also for the earth and for, humanity, right? For this whole reality, and I think that would be a definition, if you're going to define it, is people who know that something else is possible and they know they're here to have a part in it, right? We're not, as Access Consciousness would call them, would be like humanoids, right? Mm-hmm. But somehow somebody said something about unicorns, and I think I called myself a unicorn trainer in one of the posts, and then it just went nuts. All of a sudden, awesome. It was like, oh my gosh, I'm a unicorn. Like, everybody started just claiming and owning it, that they were magical unicorns. So I said, okay, great. And then miracles start happening, right? Like, they start using the access tools, and we're experimenting, and it's light, and there's not a lot of drama, and it's just like this space of play. And that's really, in, I don't know, my point of view, where unicorns like to, like, expand, right? Like, if you're going to find a unicorn playground, there's likely not going to be a lot of drama and trauma, right?
And there's likely to be a few unicorns hanging out, having fun, and telling inside jokes. And yeah, because that's, when I picture unicorns, I never picture them alone. I picture unicorns hanging out and like they have their like own magical party valley that they hang in. Like that's what I get with
a party valley. I love it. I love it. The party valley. Well, and it's interesting too because it's magnetic. Because it's like, I know that, I found the access tools for myself about almost 6 years ago now. And I was asking for the magic because I was going to go to I wasn't going to, but I was like, I've got parking karma. So if I've got parking karma, there's got to be more magic than parking karma. Right? So I was like, if I have to go to a mystery school, I will do that. Wherever this magic is. And then I, stumbled across the access tools and immediately things started changing. And I was like, holy cow, this is what I've been asking for. It's right here. And one of my first things I was exposed to was the Magic You Are at Be It book. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, this is magic. This is it. I was so excited. And it really turned, these tools have turned everything around in my life. And now what's so cool is that and you too, I know you do the same thing, is we get to be, the magic that we be, or the invitation that we be, or the pleasure that we be, or the lightness that we be. And it's an invitation to others to say, oh, well, if you can have that, so can I. Right? Totally.
Yeah, that's the coolest part of it. When I start to watch others living their life, and I'm like, oh wow, that's so cool. Like, what if I chose that, or what if I chose something that was just as fun for me, that's that fun for them? It's just like really, really fun to see how that's showing up, which is such a different reality than what I was taught was, competition. My dad was huge on competition, and it always made me feel like I'd rather die. I just don't feel like it's not my thing. I wouldn't even join sports because I didn't want to do competition. But if I could be people's cheerleader, I was there. I'm like, I could tell you how awesome you are because I like that job, but I'm not going to compete with you. I'm not interested. Like, as a kid, never got chosen for sports because I wasn't interested in being in competition. And like everybody knew it. It was obvious. I just wouldn't even play to fight that way. So to be taught that competition is what to do, and it was such an uncomfortable thing for me. I love that there's so much, there's such a different reality. Even with your crazy possible experiment, there's like 7,000 people cheering each other on for their creations, which is such an amazing thing. Like, you'd have to fill a stadium, to get that many people cheering you on. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. It's really awesome. And then I think like bringing pleasure into this conversation, right? The space that gets created when you're not doing or being competitive with each other, right? Or competition, right? When there is this sort of cheerleader, like, yeah, high five, whether you have a small win or a huge win, it's, for me, like, that's the most pleasurable thing about my work, right, is I get to watch other people succeed. And it's funny because I was just sharing this with my guy last night. I was like, people are like more and more and more telling me how awesome I am and how inspiring I am and all that kind of stuff. And that's nice. Like, but it doesn't make me feel any different, right? Like you would think, like I would have thought that would have been like, oh, that feels so good. And it doesn't to me. And I don't know, maybe I'm not receiving it, but what really like juices me up and actually excites my energy in my body is when I see someone else succeed, or when I see someone else change something that they've been struggling with, or when I see somebody ask and receive, and I'm just like, yeah, like I get so excited about it. And I'm like, man, that's just such an interesting thing, because I wouldn't have thought that like 5 years ago. I would have thought, oh, yay, people saying I'm great, but it's totally not that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, I so get that, actually. Because I do have, I've recently in the last few years been having people say stuff like that to me too, like, oh, you inspire me, without you, blah, blah, blah. I was like, awesome. And you know when I'm really happy is just like you were saying, I'm really, really like, whoa, overjoyed when somebody will say, I use this tool. Remember that thing you said use this tool, and I tried that tool, and oh my God, it changed everything. And I'm like, yes, baby, the tools worked for you. Like that is freaking awesome to me. Like, 4 words, can change a person's life. Like, interesting point of view can change people's realities. Like, that blows my mind. And like, and I'm just like, here you go. Here's a little gift I got from a class. If you'd like it, you can have it. And they're like, oh my God, it changed my world. It does. It changed my world. Those 4 words changed my reality in a huge way. So it's funny that there can be this, like, these changes can be so profound for us. Places that we've had these limitations of, like, for our entire embodiment, probably many lifetimes before. And these, like, super simple tools from Access can change them so fast. And that's that pleasure zone for me. Like, I could be naked too and having, great fun and play. And that, like, people's lives being expansive and, like, hearing about that, seeing that, watching it, yeah, that's like where it's like, whew, that's like orgasmic, totally. I love it.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because it, like I said before, it doesn't really seem like that's what would be a space of pleasure, right? It seems like it would be, like, to me at least in my head, and I was still just kind of wrapping my head around it yesterday, and I was just like, wow, this is so interesting. And so I'm like, okay, so how can I bring more of that pleasure into my life, right? How can I be the catalyst for more of that pleasure for myself, right? Awesome. And that is like, that like lights my body up right there, just going, oh, okay. And then it's almost like the universe responds and says, oh, well, create this or create that, or like go over here and go to the 7-day or do whatever. And it's like, okay.
I love that question, like that, like, what can I choose, or like what that will bring more of that energy into my life? Because there's so many times people are like, what can I choose to have more money show up? And it's not the money, and it's not the 35 levers. You can have as many levers as you like, 500, whatever. It's really the energy that excites you, that gets your body in a place of, like, expansion and joy. That energy, like when you listen to Cory and, like, she's like, that energy, there's that energy. It's a very different feeling than going, yes, I'm really happy and thank you for the flowers. But then there's like, oh God, my whole world just opened up. It's like very different. So that, like, and if you never have the words for it, it's cool. You're just aware that there's this energy and that's really the fun, like this fun space, right? And you're like, that, whatever that is, what can I choose to have more of that show up daily? And I love it because absolutely things will show up and you never know what they're going to be. Yeah, you might, find you're like creating classes, you just invented something, blah, blah, blah. Actually, I just recently had one of those, like, wow moments. So fun. Pleasure zone and all. I have, like, ideas and, like, flying around all the time, creations that I'm playing with, and I actually have an invention that is related to pleasure, but I'm not going to give details about it because I'm actually going to talk to somebody where I might have them create this thing, and so that will be available on the market. It is a sex toy that will be available on the market, but I actually got to have, like, a 1-degree separation from a woman who is setting me up with somebody to create a sex toy. Yes!
Nice!
I'm really
oh my
stoked.
Goodness.
So yeah, it's like that is like, wow, that is fun. So what can I choose to have more of that? That's how I pleasure myself as a unicorn. Woohoo, creating.
Yeah, no doubt.
Like,
go ahead.
It's kind of like masturbation, but, it's a different way of it. So
Totally.
What were you going to say, Cory? I just
Oh,
got
I
carried
just
away.
noticed we were about to. It's totally okay. I can't even remember. I just noticed we were about to go to break, so I wanted to give space for
Yeah.
that.
Cool. We're 12 seconds from break. So when we come
12
back, we'll
seconds.
talk a little bit more about pleasuring the unicorns and like, wow, what if unicorns like it different than non-unicorns? Because I think they do when we come back from break.
Many of us have created a lot of limitations around sex and what we are willing to choose. Would you be willing to explore what has already been introduced as sexual practices on this planet? What else is possible beyond what we have already seen, heard, or thought of? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual revolution? Taking the taboo out of all aspects of sex, sexuality, and copulation. By tuning into the Pleasure Zone radio show with body whisperer Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on a2zen.fm.
What would you say if I told you that you could change your life in only 1 hour and all while lying down relaxing? Thousands of people all over the world have. What am I talking about? It's called Access Consciousness, the bars. The bars is an energetic body process that contains 32 different points on your head that when run assist you in releasing decisions about any area of your life that you have made solid and as a result cannot change. The bars is the first class in Access Consciousness, a dynamic set of tools and information designed to transform any area of your life. When you have a bar session, the worst that can happen is you feel like you had a fantastic massage. The best thing that can happen is your whole life could change. Go to accessconsciousness.com today to find a facilitator to schedule a private session or to find a bars class in your area. Are you willing to give yourself an hour to change your life?
This is the Pleasure Zone with body whisperer Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, please call us in the U.S. Call 815-880-8255-TALK or Canada 613-800-8736. Or you can Skype us at a2zen.fm. You can also make the choice to ask for comment by email by sending to Milica at milicajelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pleasure Zone. I'm your host, Milica Jelenic, and tonight my guest is Cory Michelle. If any of you know her, that's awesome. If you don't know her yet, please follow her on Facebook, Cory Michelle, and you can find her also on her website, corymichelle.us. And also on Facebook, if you are on Facebook, she has a group called The Crazy Possible Experiment, and please join it. There are really cool things going on in there. So, before we went to break, we were going to discuss a little bit more about pleasuring unicorns. So,
Pleasuring unicorns.
yeah, baby. So Cory wrote, what do you want to know about pleasuring unicorns? And I wrote like 5 different weird questions, like, do unicorns like their horns to be stroked in circular fashions? Do unicorns get aroused just by hanging out with other unicorns? Are there male and female unicorns? Can they change their sexual features at will? I have so many more questions. I didn't have time to type them, but...
Well, I don't know if I'm the appropriate person to be talking about this, but we can try. You might be more appropriate than me.
So I'm wondering.
Yeah, right. But what I do think too is that when unicorns, so to speak, right, and we're not really necessarily talking about the, like swingers, right? Like they used to call me a unicorn back in the, when I was dating, because I was single, no kids, right, very open-minded.
Oh, I didn't know that was another name for swingers.
Yeah. A unicorn is someone who's single, not married, open-minded, and there's probably more in there too, but it's a swinger term. And lots of people have told me, Cory, do you know what you're saying? And I'm like, yeah, I'm creating a revolution here, and it's not about swingers, though swingers are welcome.
I love it. I had no clue. I love it. It's so funny.
Yeah, it's
Apparently
really funny.
Hung out with enough swingers, so there you go. But
well, you learn something new every day.
Hello, swingers out there. Let me know.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe you should just, schedule or title one of your shows. Who are the swingers? Who are my swinger connections?
That's right.
I'm a unicorn.
Wonder how many people are reading that title of this one and thinking about that. So there you go. Cool.
Yeah,
I hope
exactly.
you are listening, that you are confused by this and both choosing it and going, wait a minute, I am a swinger and I am a unicorn. I'm all of it. Awesome.
Exactly. Wait a second. How cool is that? Well, and I will say this, and what I've noticed is more and more I've, had bars run and had other body sessions and the Access Body processes, and most recently Essie with Glenna Rice. Man, and I haven't experienced your work yet, but I would love to. The more I experience all of that, the more my body is aware. Because I had a bunch of car accidents when I was younger, in my 20s, and so I had a ton of body work done. And I was really, really brilliant and cute, but not so bright in creating these car accidents because my body wanted this attention, so to speak. So it was like, gosh, I really wish I had a chiropractor because I didn't have any money. Right? So I couldn't afford chiropractic visits. I couldn't afford to get my body worked on. So I created car accidents, so then I got it for free with the car insurance. I mean, brilliant in one sense, but really not so bright in another sense, right? But I got a ton of work done. And I remember this one massage therapist I had a long time ago. I would say, go deeper. I like the, deep tissue stuff. And now, and I used to be able to take it, and I liked it. And it felt good. And now it's like you can barely touch me. And I'm like, oh, I just melt. Like the energy of my body and what I'm aware of. And the more I start working with it, the more aware I am. So the less I need the deep tissue and the hardcore, whatever it is, even workout, right? Like anything with my body, hardcore isn't really my thing anymore, even though it used to be, because I was opposite of you, where I actually really enjoyed competition, and I was a collegiate athlete. I played softball, and so that kind of stuff was really fun for me, and pushing my body to limits was really fun for me. But now I don't need to do that to experience my body. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah, I totally get that, and I've heard a few other people say that in Access too, and one of them is actually a friend of mine and a producer on the show, and she used to also like really intense like deep tissue work too, and I started doing some somatic body work on her, and she's like, oh, that's my body actually likes a lot more. But if you've never had the experience of something that's like gentle on your body and all you know is roughness, then sometimes that's all you can receive until you're willing to receive the gentleness too. My point of view could be an awareness. But and so also ask your body, right? Like, what can you receive? What are you willing to receive? And sometimes, just like in sex, some people, like when you're copulating, they just like it rougher. Their body can receive a lot of roughness. I have a body that could literally, through probably a symphony session, have an orgasm from 3 feet away. So, and that wasn't always the case. That's something that the more energy work I have received and also done on others, the more it's I don't have to require a lot of intense friction, or not. It doesn't take a lot. It's kind of you're alive, me too, woohoo! Okay, I'm good to go. So.
Yeah, well, and I think in the whether it's in the bedroom or I don't know, in a elevator, wherever you're going to have sex, but
elevators, right?
In life, right, everywhere. When you're expanding your awareness and your your senses with your body, whatever you want to call it, then what your body can perceive, right? It's so cool because now compared to 6 years ago, I can actually tune into somebody who's having being joy, I was going to say having joy, being joy, and like just receive that energy from a distance or over the computer even, right? Yeah. Or just, I mean, not even over a computer, just if I tap into somebody who's having, joy or being joy, then it like radiates. And so it really just has me always thinking about, what energy am I being that's actually radiating out there into the world. Right. And that's where I love like Dr. Dane's whole book, right? His whole movement is being you, changing the world. And it's like that being of energy, of pleasure, of receiving, of joy, of orgasmicness, of juiciness, of being you, whatever all of that is. It's like it's radiating out there and we have no idea who we're impacting, right? Who we're contributing to. And I think that's so cool.
And that, that is really cool. And so also know, if you're listening to this, like, you could be contributing joy and ease to a person on the other side of the planet that you've never even met, that you aren't even friends with on Facebook, and they've never even followed you on any social media. And the thing is, you being you and being joy can actually contribute to anybody and everybody. You don't even have to know them. That's like the craziest part of it. And it's like, their lives just be improving and they don't, have to actually figure out why or from how or what. Like, what if we don't actually have to know people to contribute to their lives too? You could walk down the street and you're radiating joy, and that could change the lives of everybody that walks by you, and they don't know you either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And you don't know, I'm going to add in there, you don't have to even know how.
Yeah.
Either, right? It's like just the energy of being. And when it's like, I find that when I'm being more, I love your word pleasure, right? Like when I'm, and it almost occurs like, and I'd love to know your thoughts on this too, is like when you're receiving and say your body feels good, your body feels juicy, or you're just in joy, right? The pleasure is almost like the acknowledgement of the fact that you're receiving it.
Yeah, that's what I get too.
Okay, cool. I've never said it that way before, but that's just like, the acknowledgement of, wow, I'm actually receiving this energy that feels good or that is pleasurable.
Yeah.
That's really
cool. The acknowledgement of it, yeah. So part of when I started the show and I was asking the show what it would like to be called, I had some interesting, I had kind of posed it out to some people I knew, and they're like, how about sex with Milica and blah, blah, blah. I was like, no, it's something very different than that. And it did have to do, and the energy of pleasure matched that, and that acknowledgement of what we're receiving with our bodies matched what I was looking to expand on and look at more with so different areas, where maybe there is copulation involved and sometimes not, right? Because there's so many ways to have pleasure in your life, to be pleasure too, be walking in pleasure.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, oh man, that's so brilliant. And I love that you created this show based on that. And like just even expanding the conversation that you could have pleasure in all areas of your life, right? You could be sitting alone by yourself and having pleasure. And it may be a sexual sort of pleasure, touching your genitals, or not. And I remember one of the first times I had this experience, I was going through a breakup. I had moved to California. I had been dating this guy. We moved in together. And, I knew that we weren't going to be together very long, but I didn't know it was going to end so quickly. And I was sitting there, and he was in a huff about something. I just found out he was cheating on me, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. And I'm sitting there on the couch, and I'm listening to this song, and all this, like, orgasmic energy is running through my body. And I was sitting there, and I was, like, giggling to myself, because I didn't want to be too loud, because I didn't know what he would think of that, right? Because we literally just broke up. And I'm sitting there going, whoa, if I can be in this energy going through a breakup, anything is possible.
Ah, sweet.
Yeah,
and
I was like,
sweet
wow.
acknowledgement of like you choosing what really truly is like contributing to you and your body, like, you know, unchoosing somebody, and how much joy that can bring you, how much bliss it can bring you. Just like choosing, you know, choosing to play with someone, and then it's funny, sometimes the unchoosing is just as blissful as the choosing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm unchoosing you
Well, and
now.
that's
Woo! I feel great.
the unchoosing, right? Exactly. Well, and it's interesting too because I have had that since then, and I think that was the most dynamic experience I had had. It might have shown up before, but like in little spurts or baby bits. But after that, it's like every time I sort of choose something that's really generative for me, that's like giving me energy, or acknowledge something that's actually really pleasurable and then choose more of it, then it expands like that. So like in that particular instance, I was in a situation where it was heavier for me. Like it was not really all that contributory to me. So when it changed, it's almost like you shake up a Coke bottle and you open it up and it just spurts everywhere, right? It's like the energy was like, okay, good. We had to contain ourselves to go that way, but this way, if you go over here, it's an explosion of awesomeness.
Awesome. And the Coke bottle was a very good example that wasn't too naughty, so thank you for that. And it gave a very good visual. For those who are looking for visuals who are listening to the show, we had a few mentions of that. So, yes, Coke bottle, just the pressure of the build-up.
The pressure of the build-up, for sure. And it's all bubbly and effervescent, too, so it's sweet.
If you've never actually chosen anything like that in your life, like if you've never actually chosen anything that's like expansive and brings your body like a totally different sensation where it's like tingly, excited, joy-filled, and just like what singing to you, in whatever ways you might. I am aware that there are bodies on the planet that haven't received that in this embodiment. So for those of you who never have, you can start asking, like, what is that energy they're talking about? What can I, choose to have that? Like, what can I choose to be that and receive that? And, for you, it may be completely different than it was for Cory. Could be completely different than it was for me. For those of you who have listened to this show many times, actually that ESB I was talking about that I was listening to on the plane that I went to, that ESB class, Energetic Synthesis of Being, that's with Jane here, that class, I had this like time with myself that was so expansive. My body was like vibrating and like so to the point where I think I actually did levitate, but I'm not sure. I wasn't really looking. I was just more aware of like how expansive. And when I talk about it, my hands like do the thing again. And this energy just was like emanating out of me, and I felt like I was 500 feet bigger than I ever was, and my body was like cracking and moving, and it was very extreme. It was an extreme sense of joy, and I was asking to receive the joy of embodiment, to know what is that, because I didn't have a clue. And I was asking to receive. Also, I was like, I came to this ESB class. I want to know how Dane does his magic. And I was like, okay, well, I don't do Dane's magic. I want to know how I do my magic. And then, I actually facilitated I didn't facilitate myself. I had a lot of contribution energetically to receive that, but so ask those questions. That's, that is like such an amazing, questions that are expansive are such an amazing tool to receive what you've been looking for in any way. So for me, that's really the essence of pleasuring a unicorn, is like having awarenesses, having joy of embodiment, watching other people have awarenesses. Like that's woohoo.
Yeah.
And, occasionally stroking the horn is good too, but, it can all work.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just such an interesting thing to be receiving from others' joy or others' pleasure, right? And then expanding your own. It's just really cool. So maybe we can talk more about that after we get back from the break.
That's great. And we also have a question maybe we can address too, that the person in the chat room was saying that sometimes they choose something in the moment that feels great, but they know it'll have, quote, bad repercussions. So what questions can they ask? And would the 10-minute thing apply, or is it the 10-second thing? I think they meant 10-second thing. So we can look at that when we come back from break. So thank you.
Many of us have created a lot of limitations around sex and what we are willing to choose. Would you be willing to explore what has already been introduced as sexual practices on this planet? What else is possible beyond what we have already seen, heard, or thought of? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual revolution? Taking the taboo out of all aspects of sex, sexuality, and copulation. By tuning into the Pleasure Zone radio show with body whisperer Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on a2zen.fm.
What would you say if I told you that you could change your life in only 1 hour and all while lying down relaxing? Thousands of people all over the world have. What am I talking about? It's called Access Consciousness, the bars. The bars is an energetic body process that contains 32 different points on your head that, when run, assist you in releasing decisions about any area of your life that you have made solid and as a result cannot change. The bars is the first class in Access Consciousness, a dynamic set of tools and information designed to transform any area of your life. When you have a bars session, the worst that can happen is you feel like you had a fantastic massage. The best thing that can happen is your whole life could change. Go to accessconsciousness.com today to find a facilitator, to schedule a private session, or to find a bars class in your area. Are you willing to give yourself an hour to change your life?
This is the Pleasure Zone with body whisperer Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, please call us in the U.S. Call 815-880-8255-TALK. Or Canada, 613-800-8736. Or you can Skype us at a2zen.fm. You can also make the choice to ask for comment by email by sending to Milica at milicajelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Pleasure Zone. I'm your host, Milica Jelenic, and tonight my guest is Cory Michelle. So, Cory, just before we were going to break, you had a few things you wanted to say, and also if you had a chance to look at the question in the chat room, or if you didn't have a chance to look at it, I can repeat it. I think the person is directing it for your input. So if you'd like to give that, that would be great.
Yeah, I can see it right here.
Cool.
So sometimes when I choose something in the moment, it feels great, but I know it will have bad repercussions. Well, right there, it feels great, but what you're saying is, I know it will have bad repercussions. So what are you aware of before you're choosing something that, even though it might look appetizing or pleasurable, that you already are aware of the future? And what would it be like if you actually acknowledged that you were aware of something instead of choosing it to prove yourself right?
Yeah. I know this person. They would never do that, Cory. I know her. You actually know this person too. She's been on your calls.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, hey, what else is possible? I had this one, actually it wasn't one. It was time after time after time where I would do that to myself, where I would go against my awareness. I had this addiction to saying to myself, I knew that was going to happen. I was aware of that. I knew that. But then I chose against it just to prove that what I was aware of was accurate.
That's awesome.
Right? And then there was certain times where it was exactly the same thing that she's talking about, right? This listener is talking about, was like, oh, I totally knew that was going to blow up in my face, and I did it anyways. Right. And so it's like, what if it's not the pleasure, like the perceived pleasure, right, that is, what you go after, but the whole awareness, right? Like, yeah, this is going to blow up. Do I really want to deal with that? No, not really. I'm going to choose something else. And it took me a while. I was really slow. I mean, years it took me, especially in the whole sex and relationships sort of arena. I was pretty dense. So I have a lot of awareness with that now.
Love it.
I had what not to choose for yourself.
I had a lot of that with like money investments. And I'm only in the last year kind of going, oh, all those things. Yeah, that's why I had to laugh. I'm like, oh yeah, I've so been there and done that.
Yeah, totally. Well, and it's funny too because the pleasure can be tricky if you're only looking at the immediate gratification, the instant gratification. And a lot of times unicorns want the instant gratification, right? Because it's like, how many lifetimes have we had where we did have instant manifestation or instant actualization of things? And so we think that if we ask a question or we want something, right, then it shows up right there. We're like, oh, there it is. And then we don't, sometimes, at least I wasn't doing this before, is asking more questions. And instead of just taking the first thing that showed up, right? So I would ask for like an amazing lover or something like that, and then some guy would show up, and I was like, oh, I came to some conclusion, right? Oh, I asked for this, and it showed up, and then boom, there it is, and then I just completely shut down my awareness, and then create a bunch of crap, you know, in that world. But I've done it in business. I mean, I've done it in every area of my life. It's like an ongoing adventure, right? Of seeing like that tease of the instant gratification, or is this really what I'm interested in long term? And I'm not just talking about sex and relationship here, but looking at what every choice is potentially going to create, and being aware. And it just takes practice. It sounds kind of hard as I'm talking about it right now, but I think it's just really like trial and error.
And a lot of that trial and error comes with asking a lot of questions. So is this an instant gratification? Is this something that is sustainable? What is this?
Mm-hmm. And is this really going to contribute to my life? You know, or is it just, you know, for the, you know, that sort of pleasure for the moment, which could be fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Like, not one bit. But a lot of times, like now, especially, the more I get into really creating my future, right? Because I can hop light energy all day long. I can go for the pleasure, right? Mm-hmm. The joy, the lightness all day long. But that doesn't. Well, I'll do it this way. I have an analogy for this. Are you familiar with the Grateful Dead?
Yes.
The band.
Yes.
Okay. So, you know, they've got this huge cult following, and people will follow them for years, right?
Totally.
So I call it like following the Grateful Dead around the planet, right? You can, and it's fun, and you probably will do a lot of pot brownies, and you'll listen to some great shows, and you'll meet some really fun people while you're on tour, and it's light, and it's fun, it's joyful, it's pleasurable, right? But it's not really creating your future. Right, you're kind of like light hopping, or something like that, right? And when kind of like being a gypsy, right, where you're not really creating anything for your future. You're having fun, and that's great, but it's not really creating anything for your future. So one of the questions I like to ask is, you know, if I choose this, and this is a, you know, age-old access question, is what will it create for my future?
Yeah.
Right? What will my life be like in 5 years if I choose this? So if I'm looking at that sort of thing, or those sorts of questions, then I'm actually looking at, I can see very clearly, or be aware very clearly, those things that I could say, oh, I knew that was going to happen. Right? And I go, oh, okay, I don't want to have that experience. I'm going to create something else. I'm going to choose something different here. Right? And that actually creates more pleasure for the long term, more sustainable.
Than following the Grateful Dead.
Than following the Grateful Dead around the planet, but which could be super fun, but not necessarily, because when you're done, I've talked to a few people, I'm like, okay, what happens when you're done? They're like, then you got to start creating your life.
Yeah.
I'm like, exactly. because you don't have anything to show for it, so to speak.
Except for your T-shirts
You know what I mean?
from the concerts, right?
Except for your T-shirts and a bunch of great memories, which is great. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. It's just a different way to create your future. Now, Catherine McIntosh, she's one of the people that followed the Grateful Dead around for 2 years. And when I first used this analogy, she was like, Cory, I did that. And I was like, well, what did you get out of it? Yeah, and she's like, and she thought about it. She's like, I was like, well, what happened when you were done? And she's like, well, I was just done. And then she starts thinking about it. She's like, you know what I really got from that is she had this, created this thing where she was creating miracles, which meant that she got a free ticket to the next show. And so she was creating miracle after miracle. And so it's ask and receive and being the energy. So in her, she was actually developing a skill for herself or a superpower for herself that she didn't really know she was creating. But I don't really get that that's everybody's case. It's probably more
not
unicorns than not. But I was like, wow, that actually sounds really cool. So it was a huge benefit to her. Totally unacknowledged, but we got to find that.
That's funny. It reminds me of also in Forrest Gump when he does the run back and forth across the country. And then when he's done, he's like, okay, I'm done. And everybody's like, but, we were waiting for this. He's like, I was just running. I don't know what you guys were doing, but I was just running. Mm-hmm. But they were like having this expectation that there was some kind of, outcome. And his running did create for his future. So he was following what was light for him, but he also had no point of view about it. And everybody else that was following him had a point of view about, like, there was going to be some kind of miracle information that was coming or whatever. So having no point of view, too, can also assist in creating your future in a lot of ways. If you have the point of view that you already know that you're going to screw yourself over, and you keep on choosing that because you're like, my point of view is I screw myself, and that my point of view is the other shoe is always going to drop, then you'll be sure, like we were saying before, to either prove that or unprove it. But either way, you're fighting it, you're aligning with it, or you're either aligning or agreeing, or you're resisting and reacting. Either way, there's less ease than if you were just choosing something that's more expansive. There was a little rant there I went on. Forrest Gump. That was my official Forrest Gump rant.
The Forrest Gump rant. Yeah, it's interesting too because there's so many. I mean, every choice. I used to make my choices that I've made that were like heavy or put me were the instant gratification choices that didn't turn out so good. I used to make myself so wrong for all those choices, right? And when I started practicing, going, oh, well, that was an interesting choice. Now what can I choose? Well, that was really cute, but what can I choose now? And what would I really like to create for my future? And if I'd like to have like a juicy, orgasmic, pleasurable future, then what can I choose now to actually be setting myself up for that? Mm-hmm. Right? Like, and because I was so into sports, like I think about it like practice, right? Like every choice is practice because you're gaining more awareness, right? And you're gaining more information, and you're gaining more awareness of what you'd like, what you would like, not like, right? So there are no mistakes, right? It's just like practice in your life of creating a life that you'd really like to have.
Yeah, and your future. So your future doesn't have to be long off too, right? So in creating your future, it can be tomorrow. It can be an hour from now. When you started listening to this show, where we're at right now is the future from then. Also, future is a whole different concept. But there was a very interesting question on here, I thought. And since we have 45 seconds to discuss this very huge topic, I'd like to bring it up just to go, what? What is the difference between being present? People talk, the be here and now, being present and planning for the future, like, whoa. So that could be something to kind of play with, like everybody who's trying to be present, not creating their future because they're just trying to be present. Whoa. And we have 20 seconds to talk about it.
The presence of pleasure and creating your future.
Yeah, pleasure of presence. Okay, Cory will be on again because I just said so. And if you also notice, she's creating a book. I wrote about that. She's going to be writing a book on how to pleasure a unicorn. It's just not out yet.
Thank you for choosing to listen to The Pleasure Zone. Milica Jelenic will return next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. Pacific on a2zen.fm. We hope you'll join us. Until then, have the best week of your life by choosing to be turned on and tuned in to your body.